They said it wasn't humanly possible. But now you can have all the power and excitement of Nintendo right in the palm of your hand. Introducing Game Boy. It's portable, it's in stereo, and its games are interchangeable. Plus, Game Boy comes with the outrageous new game, Tetris. And for head-to-head competition, use the revolutionary video link and blow your opponent away. Game Boy, only from Nintendo. Now you're playing with power, portable power.
Hey Geeks and Gamers, and welcome to a brand new episode of 5 Cheap Games. This is the first episode of 5 Cheap Games in the year 2025. And what better way to bring in the new year than with a new episode focused on a new console? Heck no. We're going all the way back to the dawn of handheld gaming with the original Game Boy. A console that I'm sure a lot of you, including myself, played a lot of in your childhood. The original Nintendo Game Boy was so influential throughout its lifespan, and it lasted a very long time. Today, I'm going to be showcasing 5 cheap games. Today, I'm going to be doing 6 cheap games. Yeah, I'm not changing the title of the episode, but yeah, 6 cheap games. Why, you may ask? Well, because I'm going to be talking about Game Boy games with one of my good friends. He is a streamer who also posts here on YouTube. His name is IGotKings, and he's actually going to be co-hosting the episode with me.
Hi, this is Brian, IGotKings, and TurboZone invited me on to talk for his video about 5 cheap Game Boy games. I will be talking about 3. You can find me at IGotKings on YouTube, and I also stream at IGotKings on Twitch. I hope you enjoy my picks. I think they're pretty good picks, and I hope that the price stayed under 20 from when I last checked a while ago. I think so for the last 2, maybe the first one that I talked about, not so much. But Turbo, thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure. And now enjoy.
So the way this is going to work is I'm going to showcase 3 games. He's going to showcase 3 games. I'm going to go back and forth. And at the end, I'll see ya. And we'll talk for a second before I end the episode. Yeah, this is a cool episode because the original Game Boy is such an influential little beast of a machine that, again, a lot of us played growing up. So it was kind of hard to go back and pick games for this episode because there was just so many. And honestly, a lot of them still go for pretty cheap. I don't think it's a collector's device, really. I mean, there are some more expensive games, yeah. But there's a lot of really good cheap games that you could find in the library. It's one that, while it's dated, yeah, I still have a lot of fun going back to. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of 6 cheap games.
So this is Kid Icarus of Myths and Monsters. This is the sequel to Kid Icarus, one of the NES early games. It ran on the Metroid engine. This was developed by Nintendo R&D 1 and Tosei. Published by Nintendo. Producer Gunpei Yokoi, the great Gunpei Yokoi. So this is the sequel to Kid Icarus on the NES, like I said. And it improves it in many ways. So first of all, if you fall down, one of the biggest things about Kid Icarus is it starts very, very hard. And if you fall down the screen, you will die. You can't fall below the screen. This fixes that in that you can fall below and still live. You'll just fall to the bottom of the screen and have to climb back up. You still have to kill enemies to get hearts, and the more hearts you get, you enter doors, and then you'll level up. You'll gain more health, and you'll get at the end of the level, and you'll also gain different weapon. There are 3 types of weapons. There's like I think an arrow. There's a shield, and there's something, I forget exactly what the weapons are, but this improves upon the main Kid Icarus game and makes it much more easier, much because of the dropping down off the screen won't kill you anymore. And I think that you also have like a floating jump. When you jump, you'll float a little bit. You'll slowly descend instead of drop really hard. This is a very good game. If you want to play Kid Icarus and you don't want to play the NES version, I would recommend this version. It goes for around under $20. Maybe at around 20. Since I checked, I don't know if it went up, but it's very much worth it. It was on the 3DS eShop, not anymore, unfortunately. Yeah, this was the last Kid Icarus game released until Kid Icarus Uprising on the 3DS. I want to thank Turbo for having me on to discuss my cheap under $20 Game Boy games. This is the first one I'd like to discuss, and that's Kid Icarus and Myths and Monsters. Thanks, Turbo, for having me on, and I'll hand it back to either you or me.
He's big, he's green, and he's mean. That's right, we're talking about the king of the monsters here, Godzilla. When you think Godzilla, you think of crushing towers and cars, stomping your way through cities, destroying everything in your path. That's why Godzilla on the Game Boy is so fucking adorable, because it's basically Godzilla, but chibi. Godzilla on the Game Boy is weird at first when you first look at it, because it really should not be a Godzilla game. What it is it is a single screen platformer puzzle game. I think of other games like Crazy Castle or Bubble Bobble, or just some other types of games like this where it's really about clearing a room. But you play as little Godzilla, and he is being attacked by every single monster he's ever known. No, really, there's a good handful of monsters that are out to your ass throughout this game. The objective of the levels is to break the rocks. There are rocks sprinkled throughout all the levels, and you just need to punch them against a wall or against each other to break them. Now, that sounds simple, but the way the levels are laid out, they're laid out in such a way that they want to trick you. They want you to get stuck. And your first time playing this, you are going to get stuck. You're going to make mistakes, and you're going to have to eat the dust and start over. That's just the kind of game it is. So if you enjoy this one, really comes up to, is really up to like if you enjoy that style of game. I think it's a lot of fun personally. I enjoyed this style of game. One of my favorite NES games is Wrecking Crew. So this is definitely my style of game. But yeah, it's not for everybody. But it is cheap, and it is a lot of fun if you're into it. And it's also, like I said, very funny to see Chibi Godzilla and all of his chibi friends. You got King Ghidorah, you got Rodan always chasing you around. You got Hedorah. You can't actually kill Hedorah. I don't know why, but he's the one guy that you can't kill. But with your little Godzilla punch, you can kill him with a boulder, I believe. But yeah, they're all out to get you. And I don't know. I like this game. It's kind of dumb, but it's fun.
Hi, this is Brian talking about another cheap Game Boy game for Turbo's 5 cheap Game Boy games video. Thanks for having me on, Turbo. My second game is Tiny Toons Adventures Bab's Big Break. This was developed by Konami, published by Konami in February 1992 in North America. There's a story to it, but Babs wants to be an actor, so you play Buster Bunny, Plucky, and Hampton J. Pig. You can switch between them at any time by hitting the start button. As you go through and bop on these chests in the air, like coin blocks, you get carrots, melons, and pineapples. These are the weapons. That's your ammo for the weapons of each character. Buster Bunny uses the carrots. They throw like an axe from Castlevania and an arc. Good for enemies above you. Plucky has a pineapple that bounces it down and ricochets off the wall. Good for stuff below you or at an angle. It'll bounce off the walls. And Hampton has a melon, which is like a bowling ball. He rolls it like a bowling ball and stuff on the ground. Very good for that. As you go through the levels, you collect gems. I'm not sure what the gems do. I thought they give you extra life, but they do not. They give you, I don't remember exactly. Maybe it's score, but I didn't see a score. So if you know, I didn't look it up, so let me know. Let us know. You can get extra lives through mini games. If you could find the mini games hidden in the area, there's one that's Whack-A-Mole. There's another where you race some of the characters for Tiny Toon Adventures. Dizzy Devil is in the first stage. You have to find him to progress. You can't go past. There's a wall that's a barrier, and you have to find Dizzy Devil, and he'll burrow through the wall with his spin. Then there's Furball in the other stage you got to find to help you out. Fifi La Fume and Shirley the Loon. If you watch Tiny Toons, this game is you probably get more out of this game. But even if you haven't, it's still a fun platformer. Controls very well. A is jump, B is your attack button. There's no run, so it can be kind of slow. The controls a little slippery at first, but you get used to it. The music's from the Tiny Toon Adventures themes, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good. You have Elmira is in the game. Arnold the Pitbull makes an appearance. You'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that. It's a pretty good game, and it is, at the time of looking, I saw it between, I think it was around $10 to $15, so I think it's worth that price. So thanks for having me on, Turbo, for my 3 cheap Game Boy games. That's my second one, and hand it back to you.
My next game is Bomberman GB. That's right, Bomberman Game Boy. This game has a weird history because here in North America it's known as Bomberman GB, but in Japan it's known as Bomberman GB2. Why is that? Why wasn't the original GB released here? It was Wario Blast, which was a Bomberman Wario crossover here in North America. That was the original GB in Japan. So we got our numbers all mixed up. So really this is a sequel, but you wouldn't know it by the title. Bomberman GB plays like traditional Bomberman. It is top down. You're going to be going through levels. You're going to be completing objectives like clearing out a certain amount of monsters and then finding your way to an exit. I think what's cute about this one is that they actually dress the Bomberman aesthetic up to be like Indiana Jones-ish. Like you're supposed to be going through like these tombs. Bomberman looks like Indiana Jones. It has some really cute like pictures and stuff, and like I wouldn't say animations, but stuff, like little scenes that like it'll display during the game. So it is just classic Bomberman, but kind of dressed up. So if you like this one is really dependent on if you like that classic Bomberman formula. I do. I have a lot of fun with like the Super Nintendo era of Bomberman. I'm really bad at this style though. I constantly trap myself and blow myself up. But yeah, I think it's a lot of fun to this style of Bomberman. And you know, this is a great game for like, you know, playing on the go and having it in your pocket to pull out and play anytime you would like. So Bomberman fans, take note. This game's a lot of fun. I'm sure there is a multiplayer component. Who's busting out the link cable in 2025? Hands up. Let me know in the comments. Yeah, Bomberman GB. It's a lot of fun. Also, Indiana Jones. This should have been Indiana Jones 5.
Hey, this is Brian back again with my third game for cheap Game Boy games under $20. Thanks for having me on, Turbo. This game is The Rescue of Princess Bobette. It is the sequel to the NES game, A Boy and His Blob, a game I had as a kid. And so this came out in... So I didn't have this game, but I had the original NES game. This game I didn't know about until much later. It came out developed by Imagineering, designer David Crane, who did Pitfall, published by Absolute Entertainment in North America. And this came out in May 1991 in North America. It's a puzzle platformer, not a lot of action. So basically you're a kid and you have this blob with you. And you have a bag of jelly beans with a limited amount of jelly beans. You can collect more jelly beans you find throughout the levels, and you will need them to get certain jelly beans. The first part, for example, you got to use a tangerine jelly bean to turn the blob into a trampoline. Bounce up to the platform, get the pack of jelly beans, and get a lime jelly bean in the pack, the knapsack, that turns into a key to open the door. Then you can use a vanilla jelly bean to turn into an umbrella to float down from like a parachute from high places so you don't fall, because you do have fall damage in this game if you fall from too high of a height. You have a limited amount of lives. I think there's 5, and there's a treasure counter in the game. There is a set number of treasures for your score. You can beat the game without getting the treasures, but the fun is the extra challenge if you want to collect more all the treasures and then beat the game. It's not a short game. Playing it again, I was confused on what to do, but I was getting the hang of it. It's a puzzle platformer, like I said. You got to use the right combination of jelly beans to turn your blob into what you need to use to progress. The goal is to rescue Princess Bobette. Right at the beginning of the game, you see her captured in a tower at the top, and you don't know how to get there. Your goal is to get there and rescue her. She was the princess from Blobonia. It's like I said, it's not a long game. It'll take you a while. You'll die a lot before you figure out from fall damage what to do, where to go. But it's very unique in that the controls are quite slippery though, and if you're close to the edge of a platform, the blob will run and push you off. That's the main problem I have with the game. Many deaths, he pushed me off, ran into me into the pit, and I died. Also getting in the blob exactly where you need to position him for a ladder, the strawberry bridge jelly bean or the licorice ladder jelly bean to turn him into a ladder is very hard sometimes. The positioning of the blob is the worst part. You can use ketchup jelly beans, which if the blob's stuck at the bottom and you're at the top of a big cliff, if you throw a ketchup jelly bean, he'll appear where the jelly bean is, so you're not soft locked. There's also a hummingbird jelly bean. If you run out of ketchup, you can use the hummingbird to have him fly to you, then whistle and he'll turn into a blob and land on where you're at. I wouldn't say it's hard per chance. It's more of the controls are kind of slippery. The hardness and difficulty of this game is in figuring out what to do. But I think if you want something different and you want something that's not very, poppy boppy platformer, this is a cool puzzle game and I think is pretty interesting. You can also play the NES game. I think that one probably goes for more, and it's quite longer. But this one goes for around $10 to $15. I think it's worth a shot. So see if you like it. Thanks, Turbo, for having me on. Again, it's always a pleasure, and thanks a lot. Bye.
Any chance I get to talk about Turok, I will talk about Turok. That's something you should know about me. And Turok was a huge franchise. I was going to say for Nintendo, but kind of for Nintendo during this time period, because they had a lot of exclusive games for the Nintendo 64. And that's what a lot of people think when they think Turok. But there were some other games released around this time. And around the same time as the first Turok Dinosaur Hunter for N64, the Game Boy got Turok Battle of the Bionosaurs. It's actually got its own little subtitle and it's its own little game. All of the Turok games for the Game Boy are their own thing. They follow this formula of being like action platform games that are brutally hard. And this is the first one, and there's no escaping that in this title, I will tell you that much. Battle of the Bionosaurs is not a welcoming game at first. It's a game that you're going to have to learn. It has a lot of different enemies and enemy types that all have various methods of being taken down. The first level here, you do get a knife and a bow and arrow and a gun. And some enemies are better with the gun. Some enemies, are better with the knife. It just, it depends on the enemy. Some enemies are very cheap. Some enemy placement is very cheap. And some of the platforming can be pretty tricky. You actually do take fall damage in this game, so you can't fall that far because you will get hurt. It reminds me of like a cinematic platformer. I think like the original Prince of Persia games mixed with like a more adventure game. It's unique. It's very unique. And I really like these games on Game Boy. I think they're cool, especially if you are like me. I'm a huge Turok fan, and I love like the character in the comics and the first-person shooter games and stuff. And this is a cool little like corner of the Turok universe that not a lot of people talk about, are the handheld games. And I think this would be a great place to start if you're interested in that. But Battle of the Bionosaurs can be found for pretty cheap. And like I said, it's not the most welcoming game, but honestly, I think it's a lot of fun. They are pretty, forgiving when it comes to like giving you extra lives. So even having to restart certain areas and like memorize enemy layouts isn't that bad. Great music, great presentation. Battle of the Bionosaurs is pretty sick. Six cheap games for the original Game Boy. Yeah, thanks to Brian of IGotKings for joining me for this episode. When I think of something as old as the Game Boy, I have to have on somebody as old as Brian. Am I right? I'm just kidding. I love you, Brian. Thanks for coming on, man. And thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments below what cheap Game Boy games we didn't talk about that you would definitely recommend or not recommend. Who cares? Let's just celebrate the Game Boy. The Game Boy's awesome. and we should play more of it. Let's just throw out our smartphones and our Steam Decks and our, the Switch 2. Forget the Switch 2. Nintendo, release the Game Boy 2. Yeah, that's what we need, the Game Boy 2.
また出たゼルダの伝説ゲームボーイでやっぱり出たこの度リンクがついたのはどこかの海の変な島こいつは夢か幻か島から全然出られない
どうしよう
ゲームボーイでどこでもゼルダゼルダの伝説夢を見る島